Coming up on this Thursday edition of Daybreak, former South Korean President Lee Myung-bak says North Korea offered his administration an interKorean summit and an apology for the Cheonan sinking in return for food aid. The chief nuclear envoys of the United States and Japan throw their support behind Seoul's efforts to improve its relations with North Korea. Plus, Jordan offers to free an Iraqi prisoner for a Jordanian pilot held by Islamic State. After the group threatens to kill the pilot and a Japanese hostage, the fate of both men remains unclear. Daybreak begins now. Hello, thanks for joining us. To our viewers around the world, it's 6 a.m. on Thursday, January 29th here in Seoul. I'm Mark Broome and you're tuned in to Daybreak. We begin with that revelation by former President Lee Myung-bak. The previous South Korean leader says that in July 2010, North Korea offered to hold an interKorean summit and issue an apology over the deadly torpedo attack on a South Korean warship if Seoul gave it 500,000 tons of rice. The extract was reported by Seoul-based Roundup news agency ahead of the release next week of Lee's 800-page memoir on his presidency. The former president said he refused the offer because it would have been under Pyongyang's terms and he wasn't comfortable with it. He added that the North's planned statement on the Cheonan warship sinking would have just been a general apology, not an acceptance of its responsibility and an apology. He also said he strongly pressured China to enforce international sanctions against Pyongyang after the deadly sinking. Lee's book, President's Time, is set to hit the shelves next Monday. The chief nuclear envoys of the United States and Japan have expressed their support for South Korea's efforts to improve inter-Korean relations. Following a trilateral meeting in Tokyo on Wednesday, South Korea's chief nuclear envoy, Hwang Jung-guk, said they all agreed on the need for a strong signal from the North about its sincerity towards denuclearization in return for the resumption of the stalled six-party nuclear talks. It's this multilateral dialogue involving the two Koreas, the US, China, Japan and Russia, that has been stalled since late 2008. South Korean and US diplomats will meet for talks in Seoul today, with the main focus being North Korea. The US State Department's Undersecretary of State for Political Affairs, Wendy Sherman, is going to be sitting down with South Korea's Vice Foreign Minister, Jo Tae-yong, later this morning to discuss bilateral and inter-Korean issues such as North Korea's refusal to answer Seoul's offer for high-level talks. Washington's Undersecretary of State for Arms Control and International Security and Seoul's Deputy Minister for Multilateral and Global Affairs will also hold talks. They're going to be discussing North Korea's disarmament and non-proliferation issues. Now, inter-Korean relations might not have been the best they've ever been in 2014, but trade between South and North Korea still reached a record high last year. Basically, all the volume was shipped through a land route linked to the inter-Korean industrial complex in the North's border town of Kaesong. Our Song Ji-sun reports.
Could this be a bright sign for the two Koreas' future relations? The Korea International Trade Association said on Wednesday inter-Korean trade volume topped $2.3 billion in 2014, more than double the figure from the year before. The cumulative trade volume over the past 26 years is $22 billion. Inter-Korean trade dropped to an 8-year low in 2013, the year Pyongyang shut down the jointly run Kaesong industrial complex, citing heightened tensions on the peninsula. It resumed operations there 5 months later. The products from the complex account for almost all inter-Korean trade. The recent jump in trade volume could get an extra boost from a recently concluded free trade pact between Seoul and Beijing, as the two sides agree to acknowledge Kaesong products as being South Korean in origin. Manufacturers who invest in the Kaesong complex will gain a competitive edge as their labor costs will be lower than those in China. But obstacles to the stable growth of inter-Korean trade remain, with bilateral tensions a major concern. North Korea added a new clause in September last year that allows it to detain South Korean businessmen if they do not comply with a contract or fail to make agreed payments. Pyongyang held South Korean businessmen when it shut down the complex in April 2013, saying they had outstanding bills. Another challenge will be expanding the capacity of the factories within the complex. Seoul banned facilities investment in the joint complex after the sinking of Cheonan warship in 2010. 송지선, Arirang News.
Now, it's been confirmed that no Koreans were killed in the deadly attack on a luxury hotel in the Libyan capital Tripoli, which left at least 9 people dead, including 5 foreigners. The Korean embassy in Tripoli told Yonhap News on Thursday that the 5 foreign casualties were 1 US citizen, 1 French national and 3 people from Kyrgyzstan. There had been earlier reports that 1 Korean national had been killed. Militants loyal to Islamic State have claimed responsibility for this devastating attack. An affiliate of IS released photos of the 2 suicide bombers who it said carried out the attack. 2 gunmen burst into the 5-star hotel on Tuesday and set off a car bomb in the parking lot. Time now for a look through the global headlines we're following this Thursday morning from Seoul. For that, we turn to Eunice Kim, standing by at the news center. Good morning, Eunice.
And good morning to you, Mark. So far, no deal, but there is an offer. Jordan has said it is willing to trade the female would-be suicide bomber on death row for the release of a young Jordanian pilot in the custody of the Islamic State. State TV quoted government spokesman Mohammed al-Momani as having publicized that new stance that would go against its hardline policy of not negotiating with extremists and potentially set a new precedent. There was no mention of the Japanese hostage Kenji Goto also being held by the IS group. Momani said Jordan's priority was to secure the release of pilot Moaz al-Qasasbeh from the start, who comes from a prominent family in a high-ranking Jordanian tribe important to the country's monarchy. Amman has demanded that al-Qasasbeh was still alive, that they show that he was still alive after being captured in northern Syria in December when his F-16 fell from the sky. The Jordanian prisoner Iraqi woman Sajida al-Rishawi has been jailed for over a decade after her explosive device failed to detonate during a strike on a hotel in Iraq. She was on death row for her role in terror attacks on 3 hotels that killed 60 people in 2005. And staying in the region, cross-border violence along Lebanon has left 2 Israeli soldiers and 1 Spanish UN peacekeeper killed. Hezbollah anti-tank missiles flew across an area where the borders of Lebanon, Israel, and Syria meet, hitting Israeli military vehicles. Israeli forces responded with gunfire into southern Lebanon. Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has promised the attackers would pay the full price, as a UN spokesman urged maximum restraint. Hezbollah said the strike was retaliation for an Israeli airstrike over the Syrian Golan Heights 10 days ago that had earlier killed 6 of its fighters. Greece's new leader, Alexis Tsipras, said his country will not get into a mutually destructive clash by defaulting on its deep debts. In his first cabinet meeting since his party's victory on Sunday, Prime Minister Tsipras said his government would renegotiate its $270 billion bailout. And in a news conference on Wednesday, new Prime Minister Yanis Varoufakis announced he would meet with Eurogroup's chief this week and also hold meetings with the finance ministers of Italy and France. This as ratings agency Standard & Poor's said it has put Greece on watch for a potential downgrade. And the U.S. Central Bank signaled it was on track to raise its benchmark interest rate later this year from its current rate of near zero, citing a U.S. economy that was expanding at a solid pace. The assessment came after a two-day meeting of U.S. policymakers on Wednesday, and without dwelling on the weakening global economy, the Federal Reserve said domestic labor market conditions and its strong job gains and lower unemployment rates had improved, while declines in energy costs had boosted household purchasing power. A rate hike is estimated to come as early as June.
The head of Korea's central bank is gearing up to announce a slew of contingency plans in the face of sizable uncertainty over global oil prices. Meeting with economic experts on Wednesday, Lee Ju-yeol said the central bank is devising scenarios in case prices continue to remain low and also if they rebound significantly. The governor also said its revised growth outlook from early this month factors in a potential rise in oil prices in the second half of this year. Sales of iPhones hit a record high last quarter as Apple announced what is believed to be the biggest ever profit by a public company. In the final 3 months of 2014, Apple sold almost 75 million iPhones, boosted by the latest generation of iPhone, the 6 and 6 Plus. Kim Ji-yeon reports.
Apple saw its revenue and profit soar during the holiday quarter thanks to record sales of its plus-size iPhones. Apple sold 74.5 million iPhones during its first fiscal quarter of 2015 that ended December 27, 2014. Sales during the period drove the company's total revenue to $74.6 billion, up 30% from a year earlier. The company's net profit went up to its highest level of $18 billion, reporting earnings of $3.06 a share. Released in September of last year, the iPhone 6 and 6 Plus models are the biggest iPhones yet, equipped with a 4.7-inch and 5.5-inch screen. That compares to the 4-inch screen on its previous iPhone 5 models. The jump in quarterly sales was also helped by sales of the iPhone in China. Market tracker Canalys says Apple dominated the Chinese smartphone market during the October to December period last year. Apple recorded sales of around $16 billion in mainland China, Taiwan, and Hong Kong during its fiscal 2015 first quarter. Apple is predicting its second quarter will be just as amazing as its first, with revenue of between $52 to $55 billion. This while other U.S. companies such as Microsoft have lowered their forecasts due to the strength of the dollar. The U.S. smartphone maker adds that it's releasing its next product, the Apple Watch, in April. Kim Ji-yeon, Arirang News.
The world's second largest chipmaker, SK Hynix, posted record high profits and sales for the second straight year in 2014. The Korean company's sales came to about $15.5 billion last year. That's up more than 20% from a year earlier. Operating profit spiked by over 50% to $4.7 billion. Net income was up 46% to $3.7 billion, also an all-time high. Hynix attributes the rise to its cost-saving efforts amid a stable business environment, with Samsung Electronics and Micron Technology its only major rivals. Now, with companies like Hynix and Samsung Electronics, it's hard to argue with the importance of teaching children how to program computer software. The government recognizes this need and is expanding its plans to teach elementary schools kids the basics. The plan is very ambitious, but is the framework in place? Shin Se-min reports.
Developing your own computer software would be a daunting task for the uninitiated, but it's a key skill to know in this increasing technological age. Kids in Korean schools are learning the basics of software design using this program called Scratch.
I used to think designing and developing software was difficult, but I realized that it can be quite easy using programs such as this.
By matching up some programming codes and hooking up the light sensors to the system, children can even create their own computer game.
Learning the concept of software allows them to understand the computer games they play. I also see them introducing software programs to their younger brothers and sisters. It's a great way of learning and owning the skills they've acquired.
Software education is being rolled out across more schools in Korea. The Science Ministry is aiming to up the number of elementary and middle schools teaching software from 72 to more than 230 this year. The ministry also plans to hold more than 10 creative software camps in 2015.
Teaching software development is a great way of stimulating young minds and getting them interested in programming.
The ideas are grand, but putting them into practice could prove trickier. Many schools in Korea still lack enough computer labs, PCs, and teachers sufficiently trained in programming. Shin Se-min, Arirang News.
Now, the cooking/musical show Nanta recently made history for being the most watched Korean production of all time. Our Connie Lee went to meet the creators and performers behind the scenes.
There's a lot of drumming, beating, knife wielding, and acting. This is just a brief behind-the-scenes look at Korea's very own production of Nanta. The rhythmic show just made history, hitting the 10 million viewer mark at home and abroad at the end of last year. That makes this not only the longest-running show in Korea, now in its 18th year, but also the most-watched Korean production of all time.
For a local theatrical production to hit 10 million viewers, it's unheard of, but Nanta did it. This gives hope to other locally made productions that they too could succeed.
To mark this milestone, a PMC production, the firm behind the show, celebrated this week and honored the original cast members, pictured on the trademark Nanta poster. You might recognize some of them, like actor Lee Myung-bak, who's had a recent string of hit movies. The nonverbal show about a group of chefs cooking for a wedding banquet came to life in 1997 by longtime actor turned producer and director Song Seung-hwan.
I was inspired by childhood memories of hearing my mother cook in the kitchen. I wanted to create a show that incorporated the traditional Korean rhythms of samulori and thought the kitchen had a number of items that could create those beats.
After 2 years, the show, also known as Cookin' in the West, hit the global stage, becoming the first Korean production to enter the Edinburgh Fringe Festival in 1999, and then in 2003, becoming Korea's debut on Broadway. Since then, Nanta has toured the globe and has been shown more than 31,000 times in 289 cities and 51 different countries. Critics rave about the show's comedic features, its family-friendly nature, and the fun Korean beats that can get any crowd going.
When I first created the show, I didn't think it would last this long. Today, I see even greater opportunities for Korean-made productions to succeed even more abroad.
Officials now have their eyes set squarely on China, as the Nanta Theater is set to be built in Guangzhou by this June. Connie Lee, Arirang News.
Now, like it or not, we haven't really seen much snow in Seoul this winter, but it's a very different story in Korea's Gangwon-do province. The entire area is blanketed in thick snow, which is great news because it's the site of the Taebaeksan Mountain Snow Festival. Im Yoon-hee reports.
Crystal clear skies and a winter wonderland. Every year, the Gangwon-do region gets blanketed in fluffy snow, creating a magical place that seems miles away from reality. Nestled within the area is the Taebaeksan Mountain, a mountain that soars 1,576 meters into the blue skies, a mountain known for its famous azalea plants and ancient yew trees. But for now, everything is quiet underneath the winter snow. And to celebrate, a festival is held on the Taebaeksan Mountain. People gather from all over the peninsula to trek the snowy paths and see the many beautiful sights of the mountain and the festival, including the massive ice sculptures that decorate these hills.
We don't see much snow in Suncheon, where we're from.
Here, there are huge ice sculptures and beautiful green lights to see.
Away from the hustle and bustle of the city, this year's Taebaeksan Mountain Snow Festival offers the entire family a whirlwind of an experience. Im Yoon-hee, Arirang News.
And a good Thursday morning to you all as we kick things off with the ongoing scandal over Park Tae-hwan and his testosterone shot, or I should say shots, as in multiple injections. That's right, more reports coming out on Tuesday afternoon as the Olympic swimmer allegedly visited an anti-aging clinic to receive the Navido shots, which is a renowned testosterone injection. But it wasn't just once, as reports indicate that it was at least 10 times that he visited the clinic without ever telling his management team. Now, all signs point to a possible ban from the sport for at least 4 years, as he's set to face a hearing with FINA on February 27th in Lausanne, Switzerland. The 2014 LPGA season was quite an exciting season, especially for all the Korean golfers in the tour. But with the 2015 season teeing off today, it's even more excitement as the season kicks off with the 2015 LPGA Coach Championship. With Park In-bi starting off the new season still as the top-ranked golfer, expectations remain high as they hope to see her accomplish a career Grand Slam this season. But the media has their eyes on teenage sensation Lydia Ko, who many expect to take over Park's spot at the top of the ranking. And as for rookie Chang Han-ah, she's off to a great start, currently tied for first at 5 under par after the first round. Now, for the longest time, Chaduri, aka Chaminator, was considered one of the most entertaining footballer in Korea. But fortunately, he's one match away from retiring from the national team. But that is unless the fans can do something about it. Now, thanks to the clean-shaven defender's incredible contribution to the Asian Cup team this month, fans do not want to see him say goodbye, as a petition titled "We Still Need You, Chaduri" was started. So far, there's been over 1,200 signatures of fans who want to see him continue playing for the national team after the big match on Saturday. But despite all that, the Chaminator has made it clear that he will keep his word and hopefully retire with Korea's first Asian Cup title in 55 years. Now, next in Heroes lost a big bat in Kang Jong-ho after he signed with the Pittsburgh Pirates earlier this month, but they did get a nice $5,002,015 check. But it seems like they might lose another big bat, this time in Park Byung-ho. Now, according to a report that surfaced on Tuesday, the two-time KBO MVP has signed with Octagon, the same sports management company that represents Kang Jong-ho. The 29-year-old slugger, who has expressed his desire to go over to the majors, will be eligible to be posted after November 1st, as a number of Major League scouts are expected to visit his games this season. And that's going to wrap it up for me. This has been SJ. Have a great rest of the day and see you guys again for your sports needs.
Good morning. A brief cold snap should break today, and the current temperature here in Seoul is at about -4, and that's about 4 degrees higher than the same time yesterday. But you know, it's still a cold start to the day, so dress warmly. But afternoon highs will be 3 to 4 degrees warmer than yesterday. But unlike bright, clear skies we've had for last couple of days, the clouds will be hovering around the nation. And even rain clouds have formed, and that should start to drop rain or snow first to Jeju Island before gradually spreading to other parts of the southern region. So people in the south need to carry out an umbrella before heading out. In the meantime, the upper parts of the nation should have mostly to partly cloudy skies. With that in mind, let's take a closer look at the readings for today. Now, the afternoon high in Seoul will climb up to 3, while Daegu and Gwangju peak at 6 and 4, and Busan will top out at 7 this afternoon. And as for the other regions, it looks like Jeju Island and Daejeon should see a high of 8 and 4, and Dokdo gets up to 3. That's all for Korea, and here's the international weather for viewers around the world.
Well, that's going to do it for now. Korea Today is coming up at the top of the hour, 7 a.m. Korea time. Have a wonderful day and stay tuned to Arirang. Goodbye.